Greetings, investigators of the Mythos. This is Agent 51, coming to you from my safe house in the Arkham area, which I finally reached this afternoon. The sun is going down and the stars are going to be right for me to release my first classified intel report. In the clutches of chaos, Mythos Pack releases very shortly. How it came to be in my possession at this time will remain classified in order to protect the source of intel against the sinister forces of the Mythos that stalk us constantly. I'll try not to do any spoilers of the actual scenario in here, although I plan to read the introduction later to those that wish to hear it, that are up to that stage of the Circle Undone campaign. But for now, we'll just be content to preview the investigator cards that haven't already been spoiled so far. So let's begin. First card, number 273, is the Mark 1 grenade. It's a level 4 card. Experience, 3 cost, a single fight icon. It's traded item weapon, ranged. Uses it has 3 supplies. If the Mark 1 grenade has no supplies, discard it. And for an action, you can spend a supply. For a fight action, you get +2 for this attack, and if the attack is successful instead of its standard damage, this attack deals 2 damage to each enemy and each other investigator at your location. Any additional damage is dealt to the attacked enemy. Others have discussed this card in some detail, so I won't go into the tactics of it here. The next card is myself, of course, and what few colleagues we have left. Agency Backup, level 5 experience point version, 7 cost. It's got an intelligent fight and willpower icon, traded ally agency. It has 4 horror and 4 health. Takes up an ally slot. Agency Backup may be assigned damage and or horror dealt to other investigators at your location. And it has 2 exhaustible quick actions. Exhaust Agency Backup and deal 1 damage to it. Deal a damage to an enemy at your location. And exhaust Agency Backup to deal 1 horror to it. Discover 1 clue at your location. So, as you can imagine, this would be an extremely, although expensive, and extremely valuable ally to be able to play at the right time in order to be able to defeat an enemy or gather a clue, possibly at a high shroud location when you're surrounded by enemies and don't want to take attacks of opportunity. Also, interestingly, I was thinking it would work very well with the Leo Anderson skill card. The name escapes me, but it allows you to stand an ally. So that would allow you to commit that card to a Inspiring Presence, I think it is, to a skill test. After triggering this card, and then if that skill test was successful, you could stand Agency Backup for another turn again. Only time will tell whether the cost and the XP is worth the effects or not. Ghastly Revelation, it's a Guardian card. Traded with, has 2 intelligence pips, a 0 cost, 0 experience event. Spirit traded. Discover 3 clues at your location. Give any number of your clues to another investigator. Place any number of your clues on any location. You are defeated and suffer 1 mental trauma. This action does not provoke attacks of opportunity. So again, I'm blind reviewing this, so I haven't thought about the application of this card. I see the spirit trait could be useful for that cross investigator taking. I'm imagining being in a final high shroud location, potentially where you're racing the doom clock to get those last clues to be able to advance to the final end of scenario, and perhaps you're not going to make it in time, and so then you've got one of your investigators that's willing to sacrifice himself for the good of the group. Perhaps someone who's the least useful investigator at that time, or perhaps the investigator that has the lowest number of trauma in the campaign of any other investigator and is willing to take a hit for the team to be able to get through. Because obviously, if only one investigator is defeated, you can still succeed at a scenario, versus if all are defeated, you will usually fail. So, could be useful in the right circumstances. Guardian card, the next one is Studious. It's a permanent asset, costing 3 XP. And you begin the game with 1 additional card in your opening hand. And the quote is from Dreams of the Witch House. Possibly Gilman ought not to have studied so hard. So this looks like because there's another couple of these coming up later on. It looks like this is a new theme with straight up cards that are meant to give you a permanent opening bonus. Whether it's it's an alternative now that higher education has been tabooed, but only time will tell whether it's worth spending the XP on this and not something else. But an extra card's always useful, of course. We're into our rogue cards now. The first one is a 2 cost 0 experience event called Small Favor. It has 2 fight icons. It's traded as a favor and a service. And it says deal 1 damage to a non-elite enemy at your location. But it has 2 choosable reactions. The first is when you play Small Favor, increase its cost by 2 and then deal 2 damage instead, or alternatively increase cost by 2, and instead of dealing damage to an enemy at your location, it's at a location up to 2 connections away. So you can imagine this in a Finn deck or a Sophie deck somewhere, being able to choose whether they hit an enemy on you, or perhaps you evade the enemy on you, and then you can use this to hit an enemy that's annoying, clue gatherer, or somebody else is trying to trigger, and maybe someone's trying to light a brazier and they got an enemy on them, and you can throw this down and defeat that enemy for them so they can continue to do what they need to do. So another tool in the toolbox. Time will tell, no doubt, whether it's worth playing this at the expense of something else or not. So the second card's in continuing our theme from Guardian. It's another permanent asset, another day, another dollar, permanent, 3 experience cost, and you begin each game with 2 additional resources. So you can see that this is possibly a good option for any of the rogues that have difficulty with resources, however, or want to go OP on resources. However, there are so many other resource generating cards in Rogue, so it's hard to know whether this will be worth playing or not. The main advantage being that it doesn't take up a card slot. Diana Esperance has been discussed elsewhere, so I will not spend too much time on her, but she's a 3 experience, 4 cost ally for Mystic, with 2 willpower pips. She's an ally and a witch. She comes with 3 secrets, and for a quick action you can attach a non-weakness spell event from your hand to her. limit one event, and the attached event may be played as if it were in your hand. It is not placed in your discard pile after it's played. It remains attached as an additional cost to play the attached event. Exhaust her and spend a secret. So this could be an extremely powerful card that would allow you to play a spell event up to 3 times, which could be amazing in the right circumstances, I imagine. She can also take 3 damage, 1 horror. So again, time will tell whether she is a valuable ally that replaces others in your deck. Now we're into cards that people may be familiar with. However, we've got a level 5 version of Deny Existence. It's a 0-cost event with a multi-pip option. It's traded Spell and Paradox. It's a fast event. Play when an encounter card or enemy attack would cause you to do one of the following. Choose one. Discard cards from hand, lose resources, lose actions, take damage, or take horror. You ignore the aspect of the effect and then perform the opposite of that aspect. So either draw cards, gain resources, gain additional actions, heal damage, or heal horror, respectively. This, of course, is extremely powerful in the right circumstances and could be the difference between winning and losing a game. So you can imagine it's a big bomb that you're going to hold in your hand for when the going gets tough at the end of the scenario. And potentially when you draw that game-losing encounter card that's going to bone you at the last minute when you haven't got your final clue, you can drop this and instead make your job a bit easier. Onto the Survivor cards now. Trial by Fire. It's a 3-cost event with a multi-pip. It's a fast action, play only during your turn. Choose one of your skills until the end of your turn. Set the base value of that skill to 5. So wow, this could be a really, really strong card. Again, I'm blind reviewing this, so you'll forgive me for thinking on the fly, but I'm imagining somebody like Silas, who's traditionally weak on willpower and investigating, could potentially drop this down and turn into a clue vacuum or a mentally tough encounter deck resistor for, say, for example, his last turn before the scenario ends, or some other vital time. Perhaps the clue gatherer is tied down by enemies or is in trouble, and he needs to pick up a secondary action. He can suddenly use this to. So I'm personally thinking, if possible, this would be an auto include in my Silas deck, and there may be other. I'm thinking, for Wendy, if she really needs to evade an enemy and has no other. If Wendy really needs to fight an enemy and has no other choice, or potentially. This is a fantastic card. I can see a lot of potential. Bait and Switch, which you would be familiar with. This is a level 3 version of the card. It's a 1-cost event, 3 experience. It's got a intellect and 2 agility icons for committing. And it's a tactic traded. It's either choose one. Evade, if you succeed and the enemy is non-elite, evade the enemy and move it to a connecting location, or evade, use only on a non-elite enemy at a connecting location. If you succeed, evade that enemy and switch locations with it. So I'm probably not going to comment on this one because it will be too much of a brain bender at short notice, but I'm imagining it could have some applications in specific builds that want to do something. And the last card of the pack is Anna Caslow. She has been spoiled before, the Mysterious Soothsayer. Quickly go over her. She's a 3-cost asset, takes up an ally slot. She's 4 experience with 1 multi-pip available, and you have 2 additional tarot slots. Oh, sorry, she's ally clairvoyant traded. You have 2 additional ally slots. When the game begins, if Anna Caslow is in your opening hand, put her into play. And a second reaction, after Anna Caslow enters play, search your deck for a tarot asset, put into play, and she can take 1 damage, 1 horror. I can see this being a really useful card for someone who wants to play tarot cards. The advantage being that she gives the extra slot, and also her searchability would allow you to perhaps run a 1-off instead of a 2-off. So if you're really depending on getting that Ace of Swords out, you could maybe just run one of them because she can go grab it. So that's giving you deck economy, and also beefing up your tarot. I am trying to imagine though which ally you're going to ditch in order to put her in. So only time will tell that as well. All right, investigators, that's all for the new investigator cards for this Mythos pack. I'm going to take a short break and come back with the light spoilers for the introductory story for Clutches of Chaos, and probably just reveal the first starting location.